wrong, never will they ever end me. I like ice, but you run on yourself, cause it was about war. 58 counties screaming for the mind. The war's coming forth, never with the disguise. Another A-bomb for you, who really wants it. Shroud medals in my vocabulary. Rolling with the punches, I'm roll, beating and jumping. Dealing with the problems, I got to be coping. Making it fit, and I click just like a Lego. I'll be Casio, but you can be tackled from the FBI to the CIA. I'm clearing out the path from here to LA. I leave from C-Town, kicking the roof down, ripping up the mic and way past sundown. As a world turn, as a world turn.
Finally, right?
And after many, many technical issues, we're back. New home,
Finally.
new place. Yeah,
Yes.
on the YouTube. Like I said, new home, new channels. We'll get into that in a minute. But, same faces. I'm Tate McKelly, always with me. My co-host, Tailgate Nate.
It's been a while. You'll get
Nate,
back in the rhythm. It's fine.
How we doing, Nate?
Oh, we're doing great. We're finally back. But share this with all of your friends. I am frantically checking the Twitter or X, whatever you prefer to call it. I call it Twitter. I'll refuse to call it X. And have been frantically checking YouTube there as well. It's provided a link for you to go watch on Twitter. We are live on YouTube. Tell all your friends, go subscribe, go do all of that fun stuff because, oh my goodness, finally we get to sit here, we get to talk about baseball, and we seem to have all of our issues figured out. Thank goodness. So hopefully we get a lot of people in for this first show. If not, again, those of you that are here listening, watching, just please tell all your friends, tell all your family, tell all of your Cleveland Guardian baseball fans if they want to know who the next up-and-coming Guardians will be. Taven, before we talk about baseball, though, we do have to talk about the very first logo that you saw in our intro, because starting next week, we will have a new intro video, and we're in talks with a new parent company because Believeland Media, again, is no longer a corporate entity, which is unfortunate to say the least. And both you and I, you've been with him longer than I have. For the very short time that I've known Kevin, has given me some great opportunities. He just rightfully so got burnt out, and sponsorships were not where they needed to be in his eyes. And he decided to downsize a little bit, which credit to him. He's still going to be doing some amazing work throughout, I believe it's Portage County.
Yeah. Yep.
So, we thank him for the opportunity to let us kickstart this show, but it's all on us now.
Yeah, like you said, I don't think you could have put it more perfect. Huge shout out to Kevin Sleds. He's the one that's made this show possible. Couldn't be more grateful for everything that he's done for, I know myself, and I think you would say the same thing.
Yeah, for
sure. He gave me a kickstart to this amazing industry of sports media, so just want to throw another shout out to him. And like you said, we're going to be, partnering with Keon Sports. We should be going forward. So that, that's going to be exciting too. But just, grateful that we get to continue this great show. So.
Yeah, absolutely. Hang on. We're reposting the Twitter link. So you should probably go do the same thing. Go repost that. And go retweet it and see if we can't get more people in here. So you know more than I do about how everything is going to look on the new parent company. You have talked to the guys, so I'll let you go ahead and introduce what plans are for the podcast moving forward as far as the new parent company.
Yeah, so pretty much like Nate said, we're going to be with Keon Sports from now on. Really excited for that. It's not going to be live through Keon Sports. We've done this show through Believeland. Keon Sports, we're going to have clips throughout the podcast up with them and a link to our full thing here on YouTube. Now, if you want to get the show live, we will still be doing it live 100%. It's going to be through our YouTube link and our X account. So both, whoever's watching right now, you're on one of them. We have a new YouTube. It's just Prospects of the Land. Go check that out over there. And we're just going to be doing it live through both of these.
and clips will be uploaded on Keon Sports. We're trying to get an Instagram working, otherwise YouTube, Twitter. We're going to be uploading a ton of clips. We are definitely going to try to increase our interview volume a little bit for all of you. So we'll try to get as many players and coaches as we can. Of course, now that it's during the season, we kind of got to get them as their schedule allows us to. So we're going to be trying to do just a ton more stuff with the podcast this year. Last year, we dipped the toe in the water. We are going to try to get as far into the deep end as we can this year, but at very least get into the shallow end, get waist deep, and provide some more content for all you people. So we're very excited for the opportunity with Vince, I believe is his name, over at Keon Sports. And again, we will not be doing it live through the parent company. We'll be doing it live ourselves. You can catch the full show over on Keon Sports if you do happen to miss a time, which we're going to try to stay as consistent as possible this time. Every Monday at 7 o'clock Eastern, 6 o'clock Central. Convert that to whatever time zone you may be in as well. But other than that, I don't think I have anything else to say regarding that subject. Do you?
I don't think I do. No, I mean, all that.
So again, full show will be replayed on the Keon Sports website, not on any social medias, just on the website, and then through social medias, our own and for McKee Sports as well, or Keon Sports as well. I believe I just doxed the last name there. But for Keon Sports, clips will be posted on there. Clips will be posted through here. And again, Kevin's been a great sport about all of this, and he's pushing us to do great things there as well. So we still appreciate that support and all of your support as well. Hopefully we have a fairly decent showing for this show. Obviously, it might be a little bit smaller than what we're used to, but yeah, we're just try to grow this show as much as we can. Again, our goal was to consistently get 100+ viewers here. Hopefully we're starting to see that number climb and trying to ramble a little bit so people can get in here and watch. But again, it's going to get very consistent, 7 o'clock Eastern, 6 o'clock Central, flex maybe 30 minutes, if that. Either before or after that time frame, but anywhere within that hour, you'll see our show kick off. And Taven, for those people new to our show lasts maybe about 60 to 90 minutes. And again, we're going to get really good about providing clips and getting interviews out there for all of you people this year.
Yeah, should be a fun time. Like you said, anybody that might be new, it's just a show basically about, the Cleveland Guardians prospects in minor league affiliates. So should be a fun time.
We started later than we wanted to. I think absolutely. We wanted to kickstart all of this before the minor league season sort of took over and before the major league season sort of started. Obviously, with all the technical issues, we couldn't get that done. You'll notice now there's a little blue check mark next to our name on Twitter, which honestly is pretty cool. Again, just grow those platforms as big as you can. I can't emphasize that enough. Go give Keon Sports a follow, because seeing all the work that they have done as well has been incredible. Very much so like Believeland, in that they do a lot of great work covering a lot of local events. And yeah, they're going to be our new home parent company. Again, everything though is going to be run through us. They're not having us do anything. We didn't sign a contract or whatnot. Everything is run through us. Everything you see posted on our personals. You can find him at Macaulay Media, among many other handles. Me at Tailgate Nate 29, at Prospects of the Land, wherever you find us, and through Keon Sports. Everything will be distributed by us, made by us. I should say everything's made by us, distributed however it may be. So yeah, I think that's all I got to say about that. But for those of you that are also new to the show, let's go ahead and kickstart how we talk about things on this show. So we start by going through all of the minor league affiliates. We work bottom up. So we start with single A Lynchburg, go to high A Lake County, into double A Akron. We end with triple A Columbus, talk about sort of their past games, some top performers, how they looked. Then we get into some overall storylines regarding each and every one of the clubs, as big or as small as they may be. And then we save some conversation for what's going on with the big league club and some of these young prospects that can go help the big league club there as well. Obviously, it's going to be a lot of Clippers and Guardians talk today, because each of those teams have 3 games already under their belt. But we are going to go through rosters of the other minor league affiliates. And Taven, as we're just about to hit the 10-minute mark, anything else before we get going with the Columbus Clippers 2-game Or I should say they won 2 out of 3 against Toledo, but anything else before we dive into the Clippers opening series win?
I got nothing else. I think we do it. Let's go. I'm itching.
Okay, let's go. Opening day for the Columbus Clippers. They did start on the road. Home opener, I believe, is going to be this upcoming Tuesday. So if you're in the Columbus area, hey, Clippers first home game, why don't you go ahead and go catch it? Clippers games are always a hell of a lot of fun. But they did beat Toledo 8-5 there in that first game on Friday, March 28th. They also picked up a 7-6 win on the 29th and a 6-5 win in all, or I say a 6-5 loss in almost comeback fashion, but we'll talk about that a little bit later. Taven, before we dive into more specifics, things that impressed you about Columbus in their opening series?
I think the way that they just got out of it, or got ahead of it, I should say, early. I mean, you know, they won the first 2 games. I think that's really big, obviously. No matter what you're doing as a team. So I think that was huge for him. And then another guy we were talking about before we came on here, Will Wilson, he really got ahead of it, you know, early in the season. He's made an instant impact, Rule 5 draft pick for the Guardians. So I think those 2 things are kind of the big things that I've seen out of Columbus, the little that I've got to, you know, watch them in the beginning of the season.
We'll dive more into the roster here in just a minute, but when you talk about some good performances. Bradley Hanner did end up getting the win there on Friday. The win went to, I believe that is Tanner Burns. Yes, it is Tanner Burns. And again, we still have to learn how to pronounce some of these names, but we'll go with the first name there. Andrew, where's number 35? Last name, Mrs. Isaac. Again, we'll nail that down eventually, but he picked up the save there in game 2. And then game 3, the Columbus was down 6-2 entering the 9th. They score 3 runs. And then Dion Frias, who we were both surprised made the Columbus roster, but we'll talk more about that later, got a ball that it was a slider-esque breaking pitch that started on the outside part of the plate to the right-handed hitter in Frias, broke back into the strike zone. He thought it was ball 4. It ended up being strike 2, and then watched pretty much the exact same pitch for strike 3. And that's how Columbus lost their first game of the season. They out-hit Toledo 13-8 in that game, and Denholm is going to end up getting the loss there. Trenton Denholm did get the loss. We'll talk more about specifics and who really surprised you there in that first series. So when you look there, Dom Nunez, the DH/catcher, he can play both, but he's only played DH so far this year because Cody Huff is there. And then Will Wilson playing in 2 games, both at third base, 10 at-bats, had 5 hits, came around to score twice, including a home run, 3 RBIs, only struck out once, didn't draw a walk, but 500 batting average, 1.3 OPS so far. Dom Nunez has also been a great player. 1 home run, a double. Those are his 2 hits and 11 at-bats. So the batting average doesn't look great, but drove in a team-high 5 RBIs, struck out 5 times to only 1 walk. This is a Clippers team that struck out a ton in their first series, Taven. I mean, just looking at the numbers here, 5 strikeouts from Nunez, 3 from Christian Cairo. Welcome back, Christian Cairo. Talk about that later. Dion Frias with 3 strikeouts. Petey Halpin with 3 strikeouts. 6 strikeouts from Cody Huff. 4 strikeouts from Angel Martinez. And 3 strikeouts from Milan Tolentino. So strikeouts could prove to be a problem for this team, but they are putting bat on ball. I mean, you take a look at the amount of hits overall that this team has got. They had 13 hits in the Sunday game, 6 hits, but scored 7 runs in the Saturday game. And on Friday, they collected 12 of them. So this is the team that's going to put bat on ball. Pitching might have to start finding some sort of rhythm there. But overall, Taven, not a bad opening series for the Columbus Clippers.
No, I thought it was a good opening series. You know, you look at opening day, and I think that's where they really erupted. You know, they had, like you said, 12 hits, and I mean the young guys are really stepping up in a big spot. Dion Frias, a guy who we both thought was gonna, you know, start in Akron, he comes up in a big role. He gets 2 hits. So just guys like that. Petey Halpin, he had a hit. Tolentino, I mean, three guys that each collected a hit in their first AAA game. That's impressive. And same with Cody Huff as I'm looking at the box score. And then you had guys like Angel Martinez who stepped up in a big role, and Juan Brito, who guys, including ourselves, might have thought that he'd make the opening day roster. Didn't. Goes back down to Columbus. Goes 3 for 4 with 3 RBIs. So I think that was a big, you know, kind of point there for Columbus. And then I think the pitching did almost as good as you could have asked out of them. I mean, the bullpen, for the most part, the back end of that bullpen was lights out, only allowing, 1 run in the later part of that game. And Nikhazy gave you a good start, 5 innings, only 3 hits and 2 runs. So I think, as a collective, they played really well. And I think that, carried into Saturday too.
Lots of time out of the bullpen here. I mean, the 3 starters did not go that long, which is the conversation we'll talk about the big league club later. But Nikhazy, 5 innings, only gave up 2 earned runs on only 3 hits because he gave up 2 solo homers. So that's not really a big issue. If you can just work on not hanging something or not giving a meatball over the plate. 6 strikeouts, 2 walks, 176 average to opposing hitters, 3.6 ERA in your first start for a guy that I think both you and I would agree is going to see big league time this year. Not a bad first start at all. 4 innings out of Ryan Webb and then 3 1/3 out of Trenton Denholm. A little bit of a rougher start for him. He was the one that got pulled a little bit early, but Ryan Webb too, flashing that. I mean, he was also really, really good. 2.25 ERA, had a run on only 1 hit a batter. Walks were a problem for him. He had 3 walks to only 2 strikeouts, but a .077 batting average to opposing hitters. Again, it's early. We're reading you the numbers now. There's not much you can take away from them yet. But yeah, and to your point, bullpen, apart from a couple arms, Parker Mushinski did struggle there. Bradley Hanner also did struggle. The 9 ERA does not look good. Mason Hickman really struggled. Zach Jacobs really struggled. But overall, for the most part, I mean, not too bad at performances from either the hitting or the pitching, although I think you and I both would agree. Pitching's got some work to do. Hitting's got some work to do. But overall, Taven, we can dive more into individual performances here in a little bit. But talking about the roster for Columbus a little bit, we were surprised at a couple of the names that made it. We did think that Juan Brito, out of the necessity that they needed a second baseman there at the big league club, we thought he would start with time there, but had an up and down spring training. And I think, thinking back on it, the Guardians probably were going to have to fall in love with him to keep him at the big league club. They didn't, so they dropped him down. A welcome back to Christian Cairo. He was a Rule 5 draft pick to the Atlanta Braves, but the Braves said thanks, but no thanks, and returned Christian Cairo because you can do that with Rule 5 draft picks. Much needed addition. Again, a guy that's going to get on base, a guy that can steal base, and a guy that, Taven, we were talking about this earlier, and we were going to talk about this if we went on Wednesday, but it's a guy that had better numbers in Columbus last year than he did in Akron.
Yeah, again, he's been a huge piece of this Columbus lineup. He really made an instant impact last year when he got to the big leagues AAA, and I think he's going to do the same thing this year. Obviously, Atlanta saw something in him that really didn't translate on their roster, but I obviously still think it's there enough. So I think he's going to really, bring something to the table for this Columbus team.
Do have some injuries already to talk about with this Columbus team, which I've just put head in hand. Both the lineup and the pitching rotation are going to get a whole lot better, especially out of the bullpen, because Franco Aleman and Nick Enright are both on the injured 7-day IL, and Daniel Espino, again, whenever is he going to get healthy? We have no idea. He is on the injured 60-day, but is expected to see pitching time this season. We all know about the injury to Chase DeLauder and the surgery he went through. He's on the 7-day, as well as George Valera, again, another guy that has had a bunch of injury problems. Your manager for the Clippers, it's another season for Andy Tracy at the helm of that team. So congratulations to Andy Tracy, and congratulations to a lot of guys that, hey, have been promoted. And now we're going to see time with the Clippers. Again, we talked about Will Wilson already, the Rule 5 draft pick, making an instant impact. Played a lot in AA last year, now is in the AAA ranks. Justin Boyd went from high A Lake County to AAA Columbus. Petey Halpin finally got the call up to Columbus. He had been in Akron forever. Same thing there with Milan Tolentino, Dion Frias, and Yordis Valdez. They all got the call up to play for the AAA club. Micah Pries is still there with the AAA club, as well as Kyle Detrice, I believe is how you pronounce that last name. More outfielders, Will Brennan, who, again, with the trade to Nolan Jones, And Tyler Freeman, which we'll talk about later. I know you're upset. Your boy Chill Will is one of your favorites. Angel Martinez still in that outfield there as well. Catchers, Dom Nunez is there. He's been DHing a lot. But Cody Huff, you'll see behind the dish, as well as Jake Anchia, who just got signed. He's on the 7-day injury list. And then you take a look at this pitching staff, right? You're going to get guys, and eventually Doug Nikhazy is going to see Major League time. Ryan Webb is a stub, but you still got a lot of great guys in there. Carter Spivey, congratulations to Sean Rapp, who was one of the heroes during the captain's championship run last year. He's gotten the call. He'll be a huge bullpen arm for him this year. Jack Leftwich gets the call up. I know you're going to say boo, but whatever.
I'm so thrilled. I hope he's able
he's out of Akron.
Yeah, please. I hope he thrives there. I really hope he could stay there. So good for Leftwich, man.
And then some Columbus mainstays, Mason Hickman, Zach Kent. Again, some of the last names that we will learn to pronounce, we promise you. Carter Spivey's gotten the call there. Tanner Burns is back. Once Alleman and Enright get back, you'll see them up there as well. Hey, Zach Jacobs got the call up. Bradley Hanner gets the call up. Ross Carver, Trenton Denholm. So, Taven, overall, you take a look at the construction of this Clipper roster. Anything that surprises you?
There's been a couple moves that surprised me. I don't know if they're going to stay, though, because this has happened the past kind of 2 years. I've been really following along with the minor leagues. And those kind of pertain to the Dion Frias move and the Yordis Valdez move. Now, what Cleveland normally tends to do is they like to load up AAA for that first week where it's only AAA and not Akron. And they tend to do, anywhere from like 9 infielders, and then they'll drop like 2 of them down to Akron just so they get some playing time and they're not, just sitting around for a week and a half, 2 weeks.
And right now there are 8 infielders in Columbus.
I think that'll be the case. I think that'll be the case with Frias. I mean, Valdez might be able to stick it out, but Frias, and it's not a dig to Frias, it's just his stats, and he's a young guy too. I really didn't understand the move when he went to Columbus. I think it'll just be like a weak kind of utility guy. Then they'll drop him down to Akron, and he can thrive at third base with that infield, which we'll touch on in a minute because it's insane. But
so I think, sorry, go ahead.
A lot of new guys. I don't know if a lot of them will stay, but that's the most interesting part that I kind of see about Columbus is just, all the faces from Akron.
So I think that Dion Frias is going to stay with Columbus until Yordis Valdez gets back, because Valdez right now is on the 7-day IL with Columbus, and I think they're using him as that placeholder. Yep. And then Dion Frias will probably end up slotting back down to the Akron Rubber Ducks. But Taven, if you got nothing left to talk about with Columbus, what I just said there is a perfect segue to what I want to talk about with Akron's roster.
Yeah, let's do it.
So Dion Frias, again, probably will get dropped down, but let's start with the bats for Akron. And here is all who made the roster. Behind the dish, you have Cameron Barstad, who I believe is a new addition to the organization. He's there with Cooper Engel, who, again, we both love. We love the kid, Cooper Engel. In outfield, you have Jorge Burgos. He has gotten the call up, which is great. Jake Fox, who got the call up. Joe Lampe and Guy Lipscomb, guys that finished with Akron last year. But that infield, man, with Cooper Engel behind the dish pretty much every single game, you're going to have CJ Kafis at first, Travis Bazzana at second, probably Angel Yanao, who is officially going to be starting with the Akron Rubber Ducks. Alex Mooney at third. You have Tyrese Turner there, and Khalil Watson can still be an every other day player. Kyle Dernetti is there as well. And then when you drop Dion Frias down after Yordis Valdez gets back, he's not a bad infielder in his own right. I mean, that infield is just ridiculous. You're talking about Bazzana, Kafis, and Yanao, at the very least 3 top 10 prospects within the organization in both of our respected opinions.
Yeah, you said it. I think that's the best infield across all the minor leagues. I mean, Bazzana, he's obviously the number 1 pick, the dude everybody's going nuts about this season. You have Yanao, who's been amazing. He's a top 5 prospect for us as well. And then CJ Kafis, a guy who did you give him your MVP last year? I know I did.
I think I gave the MVP. I think I gave the MVP to the MVP and Jonathan Rodriguez, but it also wouldn't surprise me if I found out I gave it to Kafis because he absolutely deserved it.
Anyway, I mean, I do that. We're over the moon nonetheless about CJ Kafis, my MVP from last year. So you take those three guys and, a Frias who can play any position. You put him at third, he can still thrive there. That infield is going to be lethal. And then, like you mentioned, Cooper Ingle behind the plate. It's going to be absolutely disgusting. So, I mean, and then Watson, you can work him in. I know they like him better as an outfielder, left, right field, even center for Watson. But I do think he'll see time, especially in the beginning of the season, in that infield, just to make it even better.
Pitching staff, let's get there. Basically a lot of the same names that we saw with Akron last year. Austin Peterson is going to be there. Parker Messick is on the roster, but I do believe he's going to be making a AAA start on Wednesday. Confirm or deny?
I did just see something about that. Let me go right here.
So
Cleveland Guardians 24-year-old left-handed pitcher Parker Messick is currently scheduled to make his AAA debut this Wednesday for Columbus at home versus St. Paul. So I assume he's going to just be starting
brought
there,
up.
riding it
Yeah,
out there.
just assume according to MILB.com, he is on the Ducks roster. I wouldn't be surprised that, look, if that first start against Columbus goes really well, he'll probably stay with the AAA club. If it doesn't go well, maybe they'll drop him back down to Akron. But Parker Messick, again, a guy that we both absolutely rave about. I like Austin Peterson. The pace at which he pitches at is back in Akron. Your guy, Aaron Davenport, is also staying with the Ducks. And then a lot of other pretty good names here as well. Tommy Mesa is there. Some of the rotation pieces might be a little bit questionable because now you have Trey Benton, who is going to be done for the season. No pitching for Trey Benton this year. Unfortunately, a fun guy to watch. Hunter Stanley was a guy with the Clippers last year. He got dropped to Akron, did not have a great spring training in the major or the minor league level, and right now is on the 60-day IL. So who knows when we'll see Hunter Stanley. But then a couple of your bullpen arms are still here. Alaska Abney with the frisbee slider. Again, Rodney Boone is still going to be there. Magnus Ellerts is there. Alan Hernandez has gotten the call up. Rorik Maltrud has gotten the call up. Same thing with Jake Miller, Zane Morehouse, Davis Sharp, Tyler Thornton, and the list goes on. What do we like about the Ducks pitching staff?
Yeah, I really love the starters that you brought back. I know it was up in the air for Davenport and, Peterson. Peterson was kind of a lock, but Davenport was really 50-50 for me. And obviously me being the big Akron fan that I am, and Davenport fan that I am, I'm over the moon that he's still with us. But it was a real possibility that they could have lost him, but it works out in the Ducks' favor that they get to keep him. And a lot of these new bullpen additions, Magnus Ellerts, he was there last year, but still fairly new. And then you got guys like, Zane Morehouse and Rorik Maltrud, guys that can just add a lot. And then Alan Hernandez, who I think is going to be a lot like Lenny Torres last year.
Yes.
We saw him absolutely shove in Lake County last season. Dude's going to be a freak of nature for the Ducks this year. And a guy who I'm really shocked didn't start in Columbus is Tommy Mace. I only say that because I want to say Mace is 24 or 25, but he's been this will be his fourth season with the Rubber Ducks. If you didn't know that. He got moved up, I want to say September of 22, and then has been with us with the Ducks ever since. So that's the only kind of shocking move that I, kind of see, but everything else is kind of straightforward to what I kind of thought was going to happen.
Yeah, pretty much same here. I mean, can we just go back to talking about that infield for a second? That's going to be the highlight of this team.
Yeah.
And I mean, you look at the outfielders, they can have good moments. Guy Lipscomb, Joe Lampe, Jake Fox, Jorge Burroughs, they all can have their good moments. But this infield, dude, it's going to be the production of most of their offense. Yeah. And it's not often that you see the infield probably end up being the 3, 4, 5 hitters. You usually have a DH or an outfielder in there somewhere, and that's natural because outfielders typically tend to bring more power. And who knows, maybe Greg DeCenzo, who is back for another season as the Ducks manager, maybe he throws Jorge Burgos in the 5 hole. Maybe Guy Lipscomb or Joe Lampe can hit in the 3. I think Lampe showed at the tail end of last year he's capable of being moved up that lineup card as he was 6 through 9 a lot last year.
Yeah, I just want to jump in real quick. They did hit Lampe Lampe in the 4 hole last year at times.
Okay.
So
perfect. So maybe they jump him in there. But I mean, Bazana, you could probably have CJ Kafis leading off, have Travis Bazana or Angel Yanao in that 2-3 hole. You kick it to a guy like Joe Lampe. whoever happens to play third base, like Alex Mooney, Tyrese Turner, is still going to end up being a very viable bat. We think both of those bats are going to end up being pretty solid here. Khalil Watson is the one that you're iffy on, and there are two guys that are not in Akron anymore, Alexri Planez, and there's one more, Bracho, who are no longer with the organization, I think in any capacity.
Yeah, so Planez is he elected free agency just before the Rule 5 draft, so they lost him that way. And then Bracho, I think he was a free agent. I know he's with the Dodgers now. I want to say he was a free agent. They pretty much just signed him straight out to a minor league deal, and again, that was the end of that. You lost a lot of power with those two, but I think you can replenish it with what you got.
Yeah, for sure. And again, same thing with your guy in Lenny Torres, who is now across the state with the Cincinnati minor league teams. Not in Dayton. I think he's with the AAA team in Louisville, I want to say.
Yeah, Louisville Bats, I think.
Yeah. So, and again, well-deserved for him. We wish nothing but the best for Lenny Torres.
For sure. He'll be a beast.
But again, looking up and down this Akron roster, they made the playoffs last year. There were times where this team looked like they could contend for a championship. Obviously, with how hot Erie got at the end of last season, it was just not to be. But I don't know about you. I think this is a team that can absolutely push to be Eastern League contenders. But looking at this roster here, I mean, and just all of the top prospects and all of the stupidly high upside players that they have, this roster is going to be nowhere near what it is right now at the end of the season. I guarantee you, one of those three infielders that we mentioned, Kefas, Bazana, or Yanao, are going to be brought up. More likely than not, it's going to end up being Bazana or Kefas that will see time in Columbus as inevitable injuries happen, as guys get called up, guys get brought down. But Bazana or Kefas are the two guys to watch there. Maybe you bring a guy like Cooper Engel up and not necessarily rush him, but push him up a little bit faster than what a lot of us are expecting, just because, again, Bo Naylor, while he still had a pretty solid start, we'll talk about that later. Who knows what David Fry is going to be when he comes back, and Austin Hedges is purely a defensive guy. So if you're looking for a catcher with a bat, if Bo Naylor still doesn't work, maybe Cooper Engel gets brought up. Again, I still don't think we'll see him in Cleveland this year, probably next year. He still is a little undersized to be a major league player. He's only 5'8", 190, but still a good guy.
Yeah, like you said, I think the big key for this Akron team, what it's going to be, or what it's going to come down to this season, is clinching that playoff spot within the first half. We mentioned it countless times. The way the minor league playoffs work is essentially there's two seasons that split right down the middle. You have the first half, the team with the best record after the first half of the season clinches the playoff spot. And then the same thing with the second half. And I personally think that if Akron's going to clinch it, it's going to have to be in this first half. They're hungry. The team that's still there, I think they're going to be hungry for a playoff spot after getting bounced in the first round by Erie. And again, you have the talent. And like you said, I think it's going to disappear a little bit once you get, into the later months of July and August. I think Bazana and Kefas, and like you said, I think Engel, I think all those three dudes are going to be in Columbus at the minimum by August. So I think key to Akron is just to get out ahead and early.
All right, move on from the Ducks, and we will now talk about, we had three minor league teams make the playoffs last year. Let's now talk about the one that won a ring, that won a championship here. It is with our good friend, Logan Petoskey, over with the Lake County Captains. It's the Lake County Captains. Again, they were Midwest League champs last year. Here is what it looks like. Another season for Omir Santos at the helm of this team. Is going to look to bring another championship back to Lake County. And the impressive thing about Lake County, the impressive thing with bringing a championship in any minor league team, is the roster is going to go through its changes. Lake County was a completely different team in the second half than they were in the first half, and they were still able to come away with a championship. That's pretty special stuff right there. But let's start out with the bats. Jacob Kozar, a guy who I really like, as well as Ralphie Velasquez, two 6'3" catchers, are going to be highlighting who's catching balls and strikes behind the dish. As far as your infielders, Angel Yanao is listed on this roster, but it has been confirmed he is going to be brought up. He will be playing in Akron, but otherwise you have Jose Devers, Mayet Collado, Kevin Rivas, and Juan Benjamin, as well as Christian Knapzik, who will be there in the infield. In the outfield, a lot of high upside bats. Jason Churio was in Lynchburg for a lot of last year. He gets the call up to play in Lake County, of course, brother of Jackson Churio, who is doing some great things with the Milwaukee Brewers. Esteban Gonzalez, Wilfredo Antunez, and Jonah Advincula are mainstays, as well as Nick Mitchell and Alfonso Rosario, who are new additions into the organization. So thoughts on the bats for Lake County this year? I don't think it was as good as it was last year because you lost Cooper Engel,
Right.
you lost Jake Fox. A lot of those guys are being brought up to Akron and Columbus, but I still think you got some good talent here.
Yeah, like you said, I don't think the lineup's, per se as depth as it was, but I still think you have a lot of stars, in that Lake County lineup. Ralphie Velasquez and Jason Churio. Those are going to be the two guys that you're really going to have to watch this season down there. But, other guys that you have, too, that can make a big impact is Johnny Tincher.
Yeah.
He made a big impact last year in the playoff series. And, a lot of again, it's single A. A lot of these guys can turn out to be something, really, really good. Kind of like Kafis last year. Kafis didn't come in as a huge name, but he stepped it up, and the stats is why we kind of rave about Kafis. So I think, again, another one of these dudes from Lake County, they don't have to be a name. You have names like Kozar, Churio, and Velasquez I mentioned, but I think there's a lot of guys that can step up, and I think one of them last year who I'm excited to really watch this year is Jonah Advincula, who really,
I agree.
He really stepped up in the playoff series for Lake County, and probably one of the biggest reasons why they have a ring. So I think he could be a guy to make that next step, and it should be fun to watch this young Lake County team, go to work in the batter's box.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with all of that. On to the pitching staff, couple starters. Dylan DeLucia is back, as well as Matt Wilkinson. Both of those guys, maybe we expect to be brought up to Akron a little bit this year, but here are some other names. We'll just go down the list. Jay Driver, Yorman Gomez, Josh Harlow, Josh Hartle is down here. A lot of new additions to the organization within here. Michael Kennedy, Steven Perez are back. Alonzo Richardson is back. Reed Johnston is on the roster, but unfortunately is going to be out for the full season there as well. So already another lost arm in the minor league pitching staff. But Taven, how do we feel about this pitching room? A lot of guys that I think we're going to have to start familiarizing ourselves with here, you and I.
Yeah, don't know a ton of guys. Matt Wilkinson, obviously, he's going to be the ace of this rotation. Big shot. Kind of shocked he didn't get to start in Akron. I really am. But, he'll obviously be there eventually. But it should be fun to watch him in Lake County, do what he did last year, keep it going. Another guy I'm shocked is kind of still there is Dylan DeLucia. He was a big part of that playoff series last year as well. He was put in a big starter role. He came up in a big spot. Love everything DeLucia has. I thought he was going to be Akron's, number 3, number 4 guy. No doubt he will once he gets there. Maybe even into a higher role once, guys start getting promoted, but that's far ways away. And like you said, the rest of these guys, I'm not too familiar with myself. Alonzo Richardson, Steven Perez are other names that, are familiar with myself from last year. Jay Driver, just guys out of the bullpen. One of them might be a starter from last year's playoff series, but the rest of the guys I'm not really familiar with. So it should be exciting to see how they do in Lake County as well.
Gomez and Harlow should be big parts there to that team there as well. But biggest key for you, Taven, for the Captains to repeat as Midwest League champions, which you think repeating at the major league level is hard, doing it at the minor league level might be tougher.
Yeah, it's going to have to come down to, how these role players are going to play. Don't really like to call them role players, but you're not your stars, how they kind of play and help out this lineup. I think a big piece of it's also going to be clinching it in the first half as well. Not saying Lynchburg doesn't have a ton of talent, but I think the majority of the talent's kind of, in Columbus and then kind of thins out. So I think a big part of that's going to be getting the most out of Ralphie Velasquez and guys like Jason Churio while they're there before and Tugboat while, they're there until they get to Akron. So I think that's going to be a big part for Lake County going back to back as well. But again, they're managed by, a great manager in Omir Santos. I think he's one of the best in the minor leagues. And I think if there's a guy to do it, it's going to be him.
Yeah, I'd agree with that there as well. On to Lynchburg. Now, single A ball is the one in the minor league systems that Look, there are going to be a lot of names in here that you do not
Yeah.
know. And a lot of names, much like what we're seeing up in Lake County this year, especially in that pitching rotation, where we're going to have to familiarize ourselves with some of these guys ourselves, much like you listening there at home. But this is where you put a lot of draft picks. This is where you put a lot of the guys that you just want to see develop. Now, there are a lot of injuries to speak of here in Lynchburg, more on the pitching side, but let's start with the bats. Robert Lopez and Bennett Thompson. So there's another new draft pick, Bennett Thompson out of Oregon,
Yeah.
who are going to be catching in Lynchburg this year, and a lot of high upside bats really throughout this roster. Yankee Baptiste is going to be, I think, a very, very high upside bat. Welbin Francisca is consistently one of the top 10 prospects in the organization. Luis Marejo, Yaikel Mijares. In the outfield, you have Carlos Gutierrez, Tommy Hawk, who had a great minor league spring training, and then a bunch of other guys that, again, we're going to have to familiarize ourselves here with. But the main thing to note, Taven, overall about this Lynchburg roster, lots of high upside bats. Jordan Smith, your manager again, by the way.
Yeah, like you said, a lot of guys we're going to have to get familiar with. Just looking at the roster, though, ton of draft picks from last year just jump out to me, which is good. I mean, most of those guys were taken out of college, so obviously you want to get them in, get them started right now. I know a couple of them saw a little bit of time last year. I know Cesarini is a name that jumps out. He hit a little bit at the beginning of last year. But I want to say Garrett Howe also. Bennett Thompson saw a little bit of time last year. He's now on the IR. Hopefully he gets back. We'd love to have another good catcher in this system. But yeah, just a ton of guys that, you know, at this low A level, you're not really going to know what these guys are capable of. So it's just going to be who can go out there and who can perform.
Pitching staff wise, again, you're looking at a ton of 60-day guys. Vergeas, if I'm saying that last name right, I'm probably not. He's on the 60-day IL, as well as Avilio Hernandez. There's two in this pitching staff. There's Melquise and Avilio. Avilio's on the 60-day, so is Aiden Major, as well as Jake Berry. But you look through this pitching staff, again, a lot of guys that we can be fairly familiar with as well, but a lot of guys want to familiarize ourselves with, and a lot of draft picks. Isaac Martinez, Rafe Schlesinger, Donovan Zach, Cam Walty, Luis Flores, Braylon Doty, who is a very, very touted, highly touted prospect, and a bunch of other guys. Again, we're just going to have to familiarize ourselves as the season goes along with. But again, got some good high upside guys. Again, big key, and I know it sounds really corny and tacky, but it's how Lynchburg is able to battle through these 60-day IL stints.
Yeah, like you said, I mean, a lot of draft picks that kind of jump out. One that catches my eyes, Braylon Doty, was our
high school pick, right?
Yeah, it was round 2 or round A compensation. I forget what he was an early pick. Which, if anybody doesn't know what round A compensation, it's pretty much the round in between the first and second round, picks awarded, that type of thing. I can't remember
balance picks.
Yeah, I can't remember what he was, but I know he was a really high draft pick for us out of high school. So it's cool to see him getting the start at Lynchburg. That means obviously he progressed really well over the offseason, spring training, stuff like that. And, you know, a lot of these guys, it's just going to be how could they perform and move up, like you said. I know you know, our buddy Isaac Martinez, he's in there. I texted him or messaged him on Instagram kind of after, you know, the rosters came out, congratulating him. He was like, yeah, not where I want to be, but definitely like ready to work up. So you can tell these young guys are really hungry, and it's just cool to see. It's going to be cool to see them get their chance to shine this year with a full year to be able to play, and with your guys like Isaac Martinez and Rafe Schlesingers and guys like that.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't really have much more to say about Lynchburg. Again, as we familiarize ourselves more with the rosters. Okay, let's do this. So I know the Clippers have already played 3 games, but biggest key for the Clippers organization this year to try to get a minor league championship, because I feel like Cleveland, the Guardians minor league system is so unique in that the Clippers loaded with talent, the Ducks loaded with talent, the Captains loaded with talent, and you never really know about Lynchburg because there are a lot of young college prospects. So what's the biggest key for the Clippers to bring home a title? Made the playoffs last year, and they got a lot of talent there, a lot of guys that are going to be going up and down between the major leagues and the AAA level.
I think the biggest thing for Columbus, opposed to the other teams where I say kind of win early, is can you stay healthy? I think that's the big part. Last year you saw a lot of key guys go down, and Daniel Espino and George Valera and Chase DeLauder and just guys of that nature. If those guys can stay healthy, I think Columbus is going to be an absolute machine this year. I mean, there's not a lot of spots for those guys up at the major league level. And that means they're all just going to go down to Columbus. I think we'll see Jonathan Rodriguez go back down there this year too. He'll be a huge part in, that Columbus team. And I just think they have to stay healthy. And especially if these young guys are able to bring to the table what you saw in that first series with the Petey Halpins and Cody Huffs and
How
guys of
about
that
Juan
nature.
Burrito's first series too? I mean,
Yeah,
come on.
exactly. Yep.
He had a great series. He hit 429. Oh,
Yeah,
sorry, I'm looking at the wrong stat line. He hit 417.
If guys like that can just stay healthy and just keep giving you results, I think Columbus is going to be fine, and I think they'll no doubt be back in that playoff spot.
Yeah, absolutely. I would agree with you. Even the guy that surprised us down there, Dion Frias, is 3 of 7. Again, not a big sample size, but again, just watch that third strike. An early season mistake, but you don't really fault him too much. And again, Frias is going to try to play to stay in Columbus. Biggest key for the Ducks, as some of these guys, again, the Clippers probably will not see a lot of roster fluctuation in terms of new guys coming up.
Right.
But you will see a lot of guys going to and from the minor league team, especially in that outfield regard. Who knows? Chase DeLauder could see big league club time this year. Will Brennan, Angel Martinez are going to get their shots. A guy like Juan Brito will probably see get called up. And then guys like Nikhazy, maybe some stretch picks like a Ryan Webb, Franco Alamon, Daniel Espino. But for sure, we'll see Nikhazy at the major league level. For the Ducks now, biggest key, I think I'm going to go away from the infield on this one, and I think it's going to end up being that pitching staff. There were moments last year where the bullpen struggled, moments last year where some of the starters, especially in the back end of that rotation, did not perform the greatest. The front end of the rotation is going to be amazing. Austin Peterson, if Parker Messick sticks in Columbus or if he gets brought down to Akron, wait to see. Tommy Mace has had up and down moments, and then some of these other starters, Aaron Davenport, going to be a good fixture in there as well. My key for Akron is pitching this year, because pitching is kind of what cost Akron a lot of games last year. We know the infield is going to produce. How the outfield produces as well could be a big factor.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. I think it's two things. I think it's winning early. Like I said, you're going to have a lot of talent leave after that first half. And, I think pitching's a huge part too. Like you said, not so much the entirety of the bullpen last year. I agree. I like where you were going. I think it was just, 2, maybe 3 certain guys, which is, why they kind of struggled. But those guys are gone now. So I think this pitching staff could be really good. I think the bullpen's going to be really solid, but I'm really excited for that starting pitching staff. You don't have Trenton Denholm. You don't have Parker Messick. 2 guys that really came up in big spots for you. But you still have, in my opinion, the greatest minor league pitcher currently going in Aaron Davenport. You still have him. You have Austin Peterson, who's a machine. Tommy Mace, who is a AA veteran now, and I think he's going to have a great start to the season before he obviously goes to Columbus, because there's no doubt he will this season. So guys like that, I think the back half of that starting rotation is going to need to come up big, but I think, if you can lean on that bullpen, especially this year, I think you're going to be in a good spot if you're Akron.
For Lake County this year, while you may not have the star power of Cooper Ingle, Travis Bazzana, Angel Yanao, you still got some star power here. As you said earlier, Taven Jacob Cozart could prove to be a star. Alfonso Rosario, Ralphie Velasquez, Jason Churio, Jonah Advincula, Wilfredo Antunez, and then some of these pitchers in here that were surprised are still there. We know Matt Wilkinson has all the tools needed to be eventually a big league pitcher. Dylan DeLucia is there. Some of the names in this bullpen. I think you said it best earlier when it's how these role players step up, especially now with some of your bullpen guys and some of your more key rotational type players going up to Akron or even Columbus. You got to find new guys to fill those holes.
Yeah, I think like you said, role players. I think that's going to be the key to, Lake County kind of putting up a good season. Obviously, Velasquez, he's going to do what he does. Churio's going to do what he does. Wilkinson's going to carry the pitching rotation.
If Churio
But
can stay healthy.
yeah, but it's guys like the Adviculas who, they have the talent. It's just, are they going to be able to bring it to the table again and really step up in a big role for this Lake County team?
And then for Lynchburg, again, it's really hard to make a prediction on any minor league team. It just gets harder as you move down the legs. Just see how guys develop. That's really all I got for Lynchburg. See how guys develop, see how the team comes together. With the draft happening in July, we'll probably get some more new faces to talk about in Lynchburg. So we'll see what happens, man.
Exactly. I think it's just how guys are going to progress and if they can stay healthy. I think those are the two biggest factors for Lynchburg.
All right, we have hit the 50-minute mark now. Normally how shows go with opening day for a lot of these other clubs being on the 6th, I do believe. This upcoming, well, maybe I should say just moving forward here later on this week. I actually will look at when some of these games are. Of course, Columbus, they will start a series with St. Paul coming up. We'll talk more about that later. Akron's opening day is on the 4th. Same with Lake County's and Lynchburg's. And we'll tell you who they're playing. Again, you've already got the preview of who Columbus was playing here in a second. But we'll talk about all of that a little bit later. But let's talk real briefly about some guard ball, and actually not real briefly, because normally we dive more into the weeds of what is happening within the minor league teams, but no minor league ball has started besides the Clippers, and we talked about them pretty extensively already. So let's talk some guard ball, shall we? They took 2 of 3 from the Royals, which, to be perfectly honest with you, I thought they were only going to take 1 of 3. So already beating my expectations, but now the expectation for me is you don't lose a single series this year. So there's that. But again, that might be me shooting way over the moon. But this next series against the Padres that starts tonight is going to be really tough. It's going to be really tough.
Yep.
But looking at how some of these guys have progressed already, I mean, dude, storyline of the Guardian start has to be Kyle Manzardo. It has to.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, that dude's been on fire. 2 home runs. Yeah. I kind of miss Naylor, but not so much anymore.
So it's weird to me now that he's not in the starting lineup for today's game against San Diego. And again, I know it's early in the season, and saying a guy is hot to start early this year is definitely stretching it, because you don't want a guy to be hot right now. You want a guy to be hot in September and October. Again, I think Kyle Manzardo has got quite a bit of ways to go in terms of his development, but man, he looks and he feels like an old school player.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Just the way he plays too. I mean, he doesn't, try to steal a ton of bases, anything like that. He just plays old school. I like everything he's about.
And this team actually does not have a stolen base attempt on the year, or a stolen base successfully on the year so far. Jose Ramirez tried it, but then sprained his wrist during that. We'll talk about that a little bit more later. But some other performances, Lane Thomas went 3 for 13. Not a bad opening series for him. Stephen Kwan is doing what he does. Please extend him now. 6 hits on 12 at-bats, 4 runs coming around to score. He's second to Manzardo with 10 total bases. You had Gabriel Arias, man. I tried to tell you, he's found something in that swing of his. And of course, with Jose Ramirez, he played a little bit of third. Didn't look bad in the field, did Gabby either. So happy with his start to the season in the field as well. Nolan Jones looks to be pretty solid. Your guy, Daniel Schneemann, with a home run, also has drawn 3 walks already, walked 3 times, and then hit a home run in the series finale against the Royals. Brian Rocchio, a little bit of a slow start for him, but I think he's going to pick it up. Same thing with Santana. Bo Naylor has had some solid moments here and there, but the thing that impresses me overall about this lineup, Taven, not a ton of strikeouts. I mean, 16 strikeouts in 99 at-bats. That's a pretty good strikeout rate.
Yeah, I think that was the big thing, coming into – I know, at least for me and you, coming into this season, was how's the pitching staff going to do, because it's kind of a totally new look. Yeah, Bibee
we'll
is
talk
your
about
ace.
That later.
Yeah, Bibee is your ace to start out, and he pitched. I mean, really, really, really good And I don't think they should have
Not
pulled him.
before Chipotle caught up with him, though.
Yeah, he pitched great. So yeah, you had Bibee, Gavin Williams. He pitched solid while he was in. Only gave up, I think, 2 runs in like 5 innings. So solid out of a first start for Gavin of the year. And then Lively pitched a beauty for spring training. Besides the one kind of ball he gave up, into deep right field, but they were able to get out of it. So I think the pitching staff so far has been good. I'm going to be really interested to see about Ortiz tonight. He's the only guy I'm kind of really on the fence with after the spring training he had. But it should be interesting to see how the other guys do in this rotation.
And weirdly, not a ton of strikeouts for the starting rotation either.
Yeah.
Bibee only had 2, Lively only had 3, and Williams only had 2. Of course, we expect those numbers to increase as time goes along. Again, I'm not too worried about the ERAs for Lively or Williams. It just comes with the first start. 5.4 and 3.6 look alarming to start the year, but really is not that bad considering Lively went 5, which is about what you figured. Williams went 5, which I'm surprised they did pitch him a little bit longer. And Bibee, 5 2/3, had retired 13 straight guys. Then you walk someone. I realize it's early in the season, and maybe the food poisoning had a little bit to do with that, which is a funny story, by the way. We'll talk about that here in a minute. But, yeah, I mean, just 2 home runs given up. You had the 1 home run given up by Paul Sewald out of the pen. He's really struggled to open up the year. And then, again, the 1 3-run shot from Vinny Pasquantino that Ben Lively gave up, but the Guardians were able to come back and win that game regardless. So, so Bibee ended up getting scratched from his opening day start. He is superstitious about Chipotle. He doesn't like Chipotle that much, but he's superstitious about Chipotle. The day before every start, he eats Chipotle, and, he must have had a bad burrito bowl or something because food poisoning, which is never fun. Food poisoning is not something that you just have and then come back from. It gets your body pretty weak. So, and look, I'm not going to argue with Stephen Vogt too much because it's early in the season. Sure, it's, they may be trying to manage his food poisoning, trying to manage his arm. He had a very, very low pitch count in that first game. But, I mean, I don't understand pulling him there. I really don't. Now, all 3 starters this week did face similar numbers of batters. Bibee had 18 batters faced, Williams had 18 batters faced, and Lively had 19, or I should say total at-bats. So, yeah, I mean, meh. If this is a problem later in the season, I'll have a bigger issue with it. But right now, just word of caution because you overused the bullpen last year, and the hardest thing to do in Major League Baseball is to duplicate a spectacular performance out of your bullpen. And if overuse is going to be a problem, they're not going to have the same year they did last year. They're just not going to.
I think that the thing with pulling Bibee, I don't want to say this is fully it, but I don't think you want to risk injury to maybe a guy that, I mean, I don't know. I'm really on the fence. I was thinking maybe something like, Vogt, he pushed Bieber. Like, I know he had like a couple back-to-back 7-inning starts before he got injured and then obviously went down the rest of the year. Maybe he's worried about the same thing with Bibee, but yeah, I really don't understand pulling him there either.
Yeah, I don't either. Joey Cantillo as well struggled in his opening. I know it's not going to look like it because his ERA is flat 0, but Joey Cantillo really, really struggled. Jacob Junis did look good, though. Tim Herron has still continued to look good. Cade Smith is doing Cade Smith things. Hunter Gaddis has had a couple solid outings.
Amazing. Gaddis has been the MVP of, besides Manzardo, I think Gaddis has been the second best player this season. He's been on fire. Yeah, he's been put in some really, really tough spots. Oh, yeah.
And has been able to come out of that. When does the talk about Clase start to get interesting?
Now.
Really? You think now?
Yeah, for me, after the first start, I know Underwood said bring on Clase in yesterday's game, and all of a sudden that doesn't sound too nice to me. Normally it's shut down. Now I'm not fully on like, oh, I'm scared of Clase, but it's starting to get there. It really is.
I think they just need to get Clase back on his rhythm because what happened last year and the reason why I think he struggled in the playoffs last year, thinking about to start this season, was they threw him off his rhythm. They were using him more in the playoffs than they were using him in the regular season. And
I think he saw a little bit.
baseball. Go ahead.
Okay.
Oh,
Okay.
I was gonna say baseball players are like the most superstitious people ever. I mean, look at Tanner
That
Bybee.
is
He has
true.
to eat Chipotle before he pitches, and I'm sure every single guy on this roster has some sort of superstition, some sort of routine that they do,
Yeah.
like the Soto shuffle or something, right? And I mean, Clase being pitched 2 innings instead of 1 in the playoffs maybe got to him. I think that's carried over a little bit. I'm not going to worry about Clase until he really blows up. Again, to me, baseball is one of the sports to where you have to give a bunch of time before you start judging a guy. And I'm not talking about a couple games, a couple series, a couple weeks. No, I wait and save judgment for a full month. That's just my personal thing.
Yeah, I was just gonna go on Clase, where like I think you said it at the end of there. I think it was the 2 kind of double innings. They put him in the 8th and expected to go, shutout. I don't think he's meant for that. I think he's meant for the 1 inning. But it is kind of concerning how it did carry over, into this season. I mean, against the Royals. Not to dig the Royals. They're a very talented lineup, but they're not what the Yankees are. I don't think that's a question. So I think Clase should have been back to his old self. Instead, he's given up runs. So I don't. Not again. I'm gonna give him definitely time. It's only been, I think, I think 1 against the Tigers, twice against the Yankees, and this would be 4 really shaky outings for him. I think he will be back. I think we'll probably see that tonight or tomorrow whenever he pitches, probably more so tomorrow. But I'm not gonna judge him too hard yet. But I am, kind of getting there with him.
I'm with you. I'm with you in the fact that the concern level is starting to rise a little bit, but I'm nowhere near the point of like panic alarms are being set off.
Exactly.
Nowhere near that point at all. But otherwise for this Guardians team, 3 game set. Sorry, 3 or 4 against the Padres. I think it's 3.
Want to say 3.
I think it's a 3. Okay, it's a 3 game set against the Padres.
Yep. Today,
which,
tomorrow,
by the way,
and Wednesdays at 4:10. Yep, 3 game set.
Which, by the way, they just took 4 straight games from the Atlanta Braves, another very, very talented team. So the Padres are not going to be an easy opponent for the Guardians. I think if I had to give a prediction, I mean, you look at who they're pitching today. He has not pitched against anyone in this Guardians lineup at all. So wild card on what you're going to get. It's a guy by the name of Kyle Hart. Still very, very talented, but I don't know the last time this guy saw big league action. It's saying right here, 2020 with the Boston Red Sox. He pitched in only 4 games, had an 0-1 record in 3 starts, a 15.55 ERA, 13 Ks, 10 walks, and allowed 19 earned runs over how many innings? 11 innings pitched. That was his last big league stint. Obviously, if he's back, he's gotten a lot better. He's the starter for the Padres, but this is their 5th guy. And with the Guardians lineup today, no Kyle Manzardo, which again, surprising. But Kyle Hart did go over to, I believe, South Korea and start to develop his game. He's a 32-year-old. Again, last pitched for the Red Sox. So we'll see there. But again, he has faced absolutely no one in the Guardians lineup. So we'll see what happens. Jonathan Rodriguez and Austin Hedges making their debut today. Second baseman Austin Hedges, by the way.
I think the biggest part in tonight's game is going to be the pitching matchup. You see a guy who hasn't really pitched in the bigs for a minute, and Kyle Hart, I think, is who you said? Yep, Kyle Hart. Versus Luis Ortiz, who's had a very, very, very shaky spring training. So it should be interesting to see how that goes tonight. And Ortiz probably is that X factor in this Guardians rotation. If he is not pitching well, watch out. Things can get pretty scary. And then it's going to be Michael King against Logan Allen in game number 2. Game number 3, you're going to end up seeing Dylan Cease pitch against Ben Lively. Again, the rotation order sort of got thrown out of whack. I'm sure with this rest day coming up here right before their series in Anaheim against the Angels, that we'll get more to a typical rotation, and Bybee will probably switch Williams for that one too. But again, overall, loved what you saw from the starting pitching. The bats, some guys are there. Some guys still need some time. In fact, Ramirez has shocked me without having a hit yet. My prediction for the night is I think the Padres are going to get the win. It's going to be close. Jose will get his first hit in a series that's going to end up being, I think, a pretty fun battle. I think we'll take at least one. I think we get two. I think I think the one we drop is kind of the Dylan Cease matchup. I do think we get tonight and tomorrow. I think Cease is. I mean, he's one of the best in the league for a reason. I think that's the one we drop. I think Lively gives up a big knock there, but I think tonight, yeah, I think like you said, I think Jose gets a hit, and I think Schneeman goes 3 for 3. I think he catches fire.
That's bold. That's
Wait,
bold.
he might not even be playing. Never mind. He's not playing.
Fernando
not Schneeman. Give me Santana 3 for 3.
Okay. Fernando Tatis, Jackson Merrill are off to some great starts this year. Those are some phenomenal ball players. Gavin Sheets, Xander Bogaerts. You have Jason Hayward in that lineup. Manny Machado, Luis Arias, Jake Cronenworth. It's a stacked batting order for this Padres team. So we'll see what the Guardian pitching staff might be able to do against there. And then previewing their series against the Angels, whoop-de-doo, you took 2 of 3 from the White Sox. And the White Sox actually just beat the Twins today. What's going on in Minnesota? They're looking like the Tees right now because they don't know how to win. But for the Anaheim Angels, keys for that series, I mean, they haven't had anyone that's hitting out of their mind right now. Mike Trout has struggled to open up the year. So has Jorge Soler. Same with Ward. This is the team that did not score a lot of runs against the White Sox, and they're in a 3-game set with the Cardinals, who just swept the Twins right now, already down 1-0 after the end of 1 are the Anaheim Angels. So when you overall look at the Angels, I mean, they got some solid guys, but that's a series the Guardians should absolutely take at least 2.
Yeah, I think it's going to be important for the Guards to, get out in front early. I think you have a lot of guys coming back in that second half of the season. So I think if you could tread water in the early going, you're going to be good. And, you have Bieber coming back to look forward to, guys like that, John Means. So if you can win early, I think you're going to be really, really, really good the rest of the way.
Yeah, and the Guardians got off to a fast start last season. So we'll see if the Guardians can get off to another fast start this year. Again, Padres and Angels is what is happening next week. They are off on Monday, which is good because we'll be back next Monday to talk about everything going on with all of the minor league teams, as well as your Cleveland Guardians as well. Again, they are on the road this entire week before they are at home for a full week next week. Again, we'll break that more down when we get to next week. A lot of Mondays off for the Guardians again this year, which is good for us.
Good for us, because minor league's off too. Day and nothing.
Minor league never plays on Monday. By the way, if you're new to minor league, never play on Monday, ever.
Tuesday through Sunday series.
Yep, Tuesday through Sunday, 6-game sets. Yikes. Again, make that opinion of what you will. Right now, San Diego money line is -165 tonight. Over under for total runs, 7.5. What are we thinking?
Give me the over. 2 guys who've been very, very shaky.
I do like the over there as well. I like the over. Hey, let's have some predictions for the Guardians this year, shall we? Again, hard to make predictions for the minor league teams, but it's always fun to make predictions on the big league clubs. So knowing what you've seen now out of Kyle Manzardo, is that a guy that can hit 25 home runs this year?
25 is a very big stretch. I think he gets close. I think he's around the 22 range, and then the next year he goes up to around 25, 27.
Let's stick on the theme of home runs, because one of my bold predictions for the Guardians this year is Steven Kwan is going to hit 20.
I think he gets close again. I think he's going to go for like 18, 19. I think he's going to get just there. He definitely will improve in the home run category. I think he gets around 18, 20 or 18, 19. I think he comes close to 20.
So a conversation very quickly about Jose Ramirez. I hope this is not a situation where he's going to try to play through this injury, because Jose Ramirez is notorious for playing through everything. Everything. This is the guy that just doesn't sit down at all. He takes no time off, which is great. Like, that's what you want out of your leader, but I don't want this to become something that lingers. And Voter even said, this is a guy that we're going to be really cautious with in the lineup today. It shows that he's good to go. Again, just seemingly sprained his wrist. He has stayed the same weight, but has gained more muscle and dropped fat. Last year, he was very close to the 40-40 club. He's not hitting the 50-50 club, because I don't even think Shohei Ohtani is going to do it again this year, because it's just really hard. Jose says he wants to start the 100-100 club. That would be nice. But do you think Jose gets 40-40 this year?
I think he does. He was real close last year. I think he's going to get it this year.
I think he's going to be close, but it's a hard thing to do. And especially if this injury turns into
Yeah,
something
he's got to stay
nagging,
healthy. That's for sure.
then yikes. He's got to stay healthy, not only for him to reach 40-40, but for this team to just
Be
do it.
successful in
Yeah,
general.
to
Yeah.
be successful and do anything. But yeah, 40-40, I think, is a bit of a stretch. 35-35, I think, is pretty realistic, and I think he will get there. But 40-40, wait and see. We will wait and see on
It's
that.
gonna be risky.
Okay, what about who's a bat that you think is going to surprise the guard dog faithful this year? Because I've already sort of felt like I have to lock in Gabby Arias. I think he's going to surprise. I don't think he's going to hit.
I think you do, yeah.
I don't think he's going to hit 270 or anything crazy, but maybe he reaches the 250 mark. He's going to hit a lot better than what a lot of people think this year, and I think he showed that in the first series.
So I have two. I think Brian Rocchio is going to be one. I think he's going to make the leap. I mean, you saw his stats last year. I think he was only hitting like 190, 200. It was not very high at all. I know he exploded in the playoffs. I think we're going to see a lot of that out of him this year. I think he's going to hit around 235, 240. I'd like him to be 245, around that area. I think if he hits that, you're going to be in a very good spot, especially with the defensive presence that he brings. And then another guy who not necessarily I think is going to be like, oh, this breakout guy who's going to go for 30 home runs and hit 280. But I think Schneeman's going to take a big step this year as a really good utility bat. Saw a little bit in the first series. He went yard. So obviously that power's kind of, getting around for Schneeman. I think he'll, hang around that 240, 245 spot. Same deal with Rocchio. He's not going to get the at-bats. So don't think he's going to be, as used as a Brian Rocchio. But again, utility guy. He could play anywhere in the infield besides first base and catcher. Guy you're going to want to keep around. He hits 245. He's going to be on the team, for a while. So I think those are my two guys.
Newest yet old addition to this Guardians team. We traded away Nolan Jones a couple years ago. Now he is back. He got swapped for his very best friend in Tyler Freeman. He gives more consistent. Hey, there you go. Look at that. I feel like I should slide over this way now. But you're sliding the wrong way, Taven. If you're trying to be to the side of the graphic. There we go.
Just there.
Yeah. All right. Sure. Why not? I feel like I should slide over to the side of the graphic. Yeah, there you go. Nolan Jones, Tyler Freeman, they have been swapped. Two guys that love each other. They literally called the phone in tears and were like, dude, I just got traded. Yeah, I just got traded too. I don't know where though. And then Nolan Jones was like, I think I have a pretty good idea of where you're going. So Nolan Jones returns to the organization. He gives a lot more consistency to the right field issue. Probably going to see him play in right field quite a bit this season. He struggled in Colorado last year, but had a fantastic 2023. Taven, if you want to take the graphic away, what do we expect from Nolan Jones?
A lot of outfield gates getting busted through. That's my big thing. I think he's going to go through a lot of chain link. But for real, I think we're going to get one of two guys out of Nolan Jones. I think we're going to get the all-star that we saw in 23 or a guy that kind of struggles like we saw last year. He's been very up and down. He's going
to give you good stuff in the field, period. But
for sure, it's just the bat's going to be either all kind of, in my opinion, I think it's going to be all, all-star. Or it's just not going to be there this year. And that's the type of guy he's been throughout his minor league career. He's been very up and down. He's kind of been a little bit inconsistent. So it's going to be, he kind of catch fire and stay consistent. So
another thing I want to see with this Guardians team is, look, I fully know the reason that Carlos Santana was brought into this organization. I need to see Manzardo play some first base.
Yeah.
Because
sure.
Carlos Santana is a 1-year rental, and then he's gone to probably play AAA ball for the rest of his days because he's getting up there in age. I'm kidding. Carlos Santana is a very serviceable major league player, and I think will be throughout the remainder of his career. He probably will even be very serviceable for the Guardians this season, as he's already proven to be. He has come around to score every time he has reached base safely. But Manzardo needs to get some reps in at first base. He has to.
I think he will. It's a very kind of loaded position. You have Santana, and then you're going to try to platoon Manzardo to get some reps in there, along with the guy in John Kenzie Noel. So you got a lot of guys that can play that first base position. I do think Santana's going to get a load of, the reps. You brought him in on a $10+ million deal, and he's that bridge guy. He's that veteran presence for Manzardo to kind of learn behind, like you said, 1-year rental. And I like the move. I didn't at the time because, you lose Naylor, and he was kind of the fan favorite. But at the moment, I kind of like it. We see what you can get out of Manzardo. I would like to see them flip a decent amount throughout the season. I think if one DHs, next day you flip them, DH the other guy, let the other guy get reps at first. So I think it's going to be very back and forth with those two. And that's kind of just how I see that going throughout the year.
Again, I gave you my bold prediction on the hitting standpoint. I think it's going to be Stephen Kwan hitting 20, maybe even 25 home runs. Thing for the pitching aspect. Bibee obviously is going to be, or I should say Bieber when he gets back is going to be the ace. Yeah. But I think towards the middle of the season in like June and into July before we see Bieber come back, I think Bibee and Williams are going to be 1A, 1B. I think they will be indistinguishable from who's the ace and who's not.
Yeah, especially with Bieber's injury. Beginning of last year, I would have told you you're crazy, but now Bibee's proven himself as, one of the best. I would put him top 25 starter in baseball. I think would you agree? Are we there yet with Bibee? Top 25 all league?
I'll definitely maybe go top.
Not saying he's at the beginning of that list, but definitely. I
definitely have to make that list and look and see who would be above him. Obviously, you can discount Garrett Cole because he's not pitching this year. So we're talking about specifically this year. I think it'd be close, but I think I'd go at least top 35 off the top of my head for Tanner Bibee. And I definitely think Gavin Williams has that potential there as well.
Nonetheless, proven, good pitcher in, the start of that lineup. So like you said, I think with the injury to Bieber, they're going to be 1A, 1B, and it's going to come down to can the rest of those guys capitalize with Lively, and can Gavin Williams get back to what we know he can be, which is an all-star.
Mm-hmm. Slade Ciccone, Andrew Walters, and Eric Sabrowski should all be back to throwing relatively soon. Obviously, Bieber and Means are going to be trying to come back from their Tommy Johns. And a lot of other guys that struggled in the spring, we'll see if they can pick it up here, such as a Cantillo, a Junis. Cantillo's got all the stuff, man. He's got to throw strikes. He has to throw strikes.
Yeah, that's the big thing with Cantillo. But, I mean, you kind of saw that with, a majority of these guys. I mean, Gavin, he wasn't throwing a ton of strikes. He was throwing a couple balls, and especially at Bibee start, the first two innings, they were very shaky. He was missing the zone, especially in the first inning a lot of the time. Now, he did settle in, and that's what we've seen out of Bibee in the past. Bibee struggle innings is kind of that 1 and 6. But, yeah, like you mentioned, Cantillo, he's got the stuff. We've seen it in AAA. It's just can he pound that strike zone and really, really hit it?
I don't really have anything else. The strikeout rate among starters needs to increase.
Yeah,
I think that's probably the one thing that I want to see get better, but Bibee had a good first outing. Lively did as well. Same thing with Gavin Williams. I think the big one comes tonight with Luis Ortiz. That's the big one. The big one.
Yeah, hopefully we see a good outing out of him. You'd like to. Guy who struggled, maybe he can get a good bounce back in his first start of the new season, new team. So hopefully we see good stuff out of him tonight.
One thing that finally I just remembered this. What is Tristan McKenzie doing in this bullpen?
Your guess is as good as mine.
The ship has sailed for both you and I,
for sure. Beginning of last year, it sailed for me. Probably a year before that. But my thing, I know why he's there. It's because they said it on the broadcast, even not mentioned it, is you have to find a spot for him. Otherwise, you have to DFA him if you send him back down to Columbus. And I think the only spot is hide him somewhere in that bullpen. Because obviously he's not going to be one of the top 5 starters in your rotation. So you're going to have to hide him in the bullpen or just kind of bite the bullet on what was Tristan McKenzie and, kind of DFA him. So
at the very most, you hope that he can find a serviceable role within this bullpen, being a long-term inning guy like a Pedro Avila inning eater from last season. That is going to be his role. if he starts to pitch really well, they might give him a start and see how it goes, just based on his history and what he has been in the past. And look, there was a time where we were sitting here, not on podcast, of course, very young podcast, still in its infancy, getting on the various airwaves. But there was a time where Guardians fans were talking about Tristan McKenzie the same way we're talking about Tanner Bybee and Gavin Williams right now as the next big up-and-coming great starting pitcher to pitch in the city of Cleveland. And then all the wheels fell off the wagon all at once.
Yeah, it's not. It's tough. I mean, I don't want to say he's fully done, but I'm kind of at that point. I don't know about you. Maybe he's got something to offer in the bullpen, but it's not looking good for McKenzie.
So like I said, I've been at that point. I was at that point last season. I am not at that point with Logan Allen. I am actually very excited. I am actually very excited to see how he plays this coming Tuesday and see how he pitches, because he was one of the guys that was lighting things up in the spring. So I'm very excited to see how Logan Allen pitches. And I'm going to go ahead and defer to my own rule. Give him a month, give him a couple of bullpen outings, maybe 10 or so innings. Let's see how it goes, and then we can make a decision. Obviously, he has yet to make his season debut. He will definitely see some action here against the Padres.
Yeah, Logan Allen's another dude. I mean, I've said it before on here. I love the dude. I think he still got the stuff. I think he went – we saw it in his rookie year last year. He decreased. He definitely did. But I genuinely think that it was the right move for him to be that fifth starter over a guy like Cantillo or Nikhazy. I think you want that kind of veteran presence, even though it's his only third year. But you kind of want that veteran presence around. And I really think he still has the stuff. It's can he capitalize on it this season? I love everything Allen has to bring, and I think he's going to be solid for this rotation.
So obviously there are still a couple of guys that are on the injury list. Again, Andrew Walters is still there. Eric Sabrowski is on that injury list. Shane Bieber is there as well. Those are three pitchers you will see at the big league level, and maybe McKenzie or Cantillo or someone gets sent down. Obviously, it can't be McKenzie. I don't know why I said that, because like you said earlier, you'd have to DFA him. But when you're looking at probably more than likely the Columbus roster and maybe some guys on the Akron roster, Taven, the prospect that can best help the Guardians, will start on the pitching side this is an easy one.
Doug Nikhazy.
Oh, yeah.
It's going to have to be. I mean, the starting rotation's kind of, thin. And especially as the season goes on, we could see it get even thinner with guys, maybe not performing to the best of their abilities, or knock on wood, injuries don't happen, but those could very well happen. So I think Doug Nikhazy is going to be the biggest, guy to step in that role. And injuries or guys don't perform or not, we're going to see him in the big league level before June is my prediction.
Yeah, I would definitely agree with that. I mean, an injury is inevitable no matter where it comes from. Right. And if he continues to pitch as well as he did in the spring in Columbus and continues what he did from that first start, yeah, he's going to see time there. Now, that's probably the one bona fide name that you're absolutely going to see. Will we see any other pitchers make their big league debut? Your guess is as good as mine. Maybe, again, some guys on the MLB 40-man, Franco Aleman, Nick Enright, Daniel Espino. Those are all guys that have to come back from the injury list. But once they do, who knows? Maybe we'll see them make some major league debuts this year as well. Now when you go to the field, it's another really easy one. I think absolutely Juan Brito is going to see major league time this season. They are going to give him the crack at it. We'll see what happens for that later on. But some other guys on the 40-man, Will Brennan's going to see major league time. But as far as making a major league debut, Angel Martinez had major league time last year. George Valera is not on the 40-man roster. Chase DeLauder is not on the 40-man roster. Interestingly, Petey Halpin is. Any of those guys stand out to you?
Is the reason why Valera, and especially DeLauder, is that just because they're on the IR?
I don't think they're Rule 5 eligible.
Okay.
So that's why. Because Petey Halpin obviously is. He's been with the organization.
And that's why
forever.
He's on there. I think they DFA'd Valera, got him back, which is why he might not be yet. So, yeah, the 40-man's a really interesting topic.
Mm-hmm.
It really is.
But any of those guys stand out to you? Again, besides Juan Brito, who had a great first series, anyone else do you think will see some major league time this year besides the guys that obviously have already been up there, such as a Brennan or Angel Martinez?
Yeah, I think Franco Alamon's another guy we really hammered home out of the bullpen. I think he will
Okay.
get a shot. I think it'll come, kind of to the demise of Tristan McKenzie. I do think that's kind of how he will get that spot. Eventually, I know he's on the IR right now. He'll definitely start in Columbus, just having that injury, but nonetheless, he will be in that bullpen. And him, Cade Smith, and Class A is going to be a lethal three guys to have. And then you have Gaddis. It just gets dumber and dumber every time you think about it, how good
it really does.
That bullpen's going to be. I mean, Cade Smith, he could be a closer on probably 27 other teams in the league, if we're being for real.
Yeah.
And I think Alamon, we're going to see the same exact thing out of him. And, at the end of this year, we're going to be talking same thing with all three of those guys.
Any stretch picks from Akron that you think maybe could, if a bulk of injuries happen or is just playing really good baseball, that could maybe see major league time this year? It could have happened with DeLauder going from Akron to Cleveland last year. I think maybe the only guy that I could see it being a realistic shot of is Travis Bazzana.
I was going to go Cooper Engel. Strictly because you don't have as much depth in the catcher position.
And I like that pick. I like that pick.
Columbus, outside of who's the other, or Dom Nunez and Cody Huff. I don't see Cody Huff really getting up there. He's young. I mean, Cooper Engel's young as well, but he's, in my opinion, he's a little bit better than Cody Huff. Maybe not behind the dish.
Cody Huff has the experience factor.
Exactly. But Cooper Engel, if he's still hitting 300, I don't think you can deny that, especially if guys like Bo Naylor and obviously Hedges is going to struggle at the plate. But if those guys really struggle offensively and Fry maybe, something sets him back and he's done catching the entire year, right? I want to say yes.
You could be correct. I'm not going to confer or deny that because I honestly do not know. I thought I remembered reading somewhere that he was going to be okay to catch, but maybe
either way,
just based off of that throws a really interesting wrench in the things when he comes back too, because that's another player I forgot about that's on IR. Because if you're already DHing Manzardo a lot, now Manzardo and Santana are going to have to split time. You could still catch Fry, but if they're going to limit him and not let him catch, he becomes a very, very interesting piece. But
yep, David Fry currently on the 60-day IL for no, that's wrong. But it does say here will not be able to catch for the entirety of the 2025 season due to elbow surgery, but will be able to hit. So
that's
he's going to be your DH
wrinkle
for the season.
That's a very interesting wrinkle, actually, because if Santana is producing and then Manzardo, you can DH him. You can't play Manzardo anywhere else but first. You could try Fry in the field. He could play some time in right.
Possibly. Yeah, I can see it.
But if they're
if
they're not going to let him catch and you avoid him from the field entirely, then you have another guy that is a sole DH. Man, that's an interesting wrinkle.
And then you have another guy you have to throw in there with John Kenzie Noel, who is in that same boat as well. So there's just too many of those first base kind of DH guys that you have going on right now, which is a good problem to have. It's a better problem to have is not enough guys. So
yeah. Again, but Manzardo has to see time at first because he's going to be your everyday first baseman.
For sure.
Eventually, if not immediately next season. So he's got to see time.
And I look back on that trade. What's crazy is we gave up Aaron Savali for Kyle Manzardo.
Oh, did you see him get rocked in Mill? I mean, the Brewers have been getting rocked lately.
And that's something we have to talk about that you wanted to is the torpedo bats. We almost forgot.
Yeah, we did. And the Braves just put in an order for the torpedo bat. Do you have a picture of this thing you could pull up for the people? Could you grab one really fast?
Yeah, let me grab one real quick.
Yeah, so Taven's going to grab you a picture of the torpedo bat just to show you what it looks like. But it basically is just a new style of bat. Well, I don't think it's even new. I think it's been around for a while, but now
I think somebody might have said like reinvented.
Yeah, it really grinds your gears that the Yankees are the team using it, which, by the way, it's a bat that's intended for more power because it increases your barrel rate, which means better power because you're hitting the baseball more square, which means it's going to fly farther. And it just, so it's a very, very interesting thing because the Yankees already have 15 home runs through the first 3 games they played against the Brewers. Aaron Judge had 4 of those, and he didn't even use the torpedo bat, which is also very scary to think about. But now the Braves have put in an order for
Right
him.
here.
Yep, there it is. So you can sort of see, of course, the barrel of the bat is pretty thick in one point, and then it starts to thin out just a little bit. I don't know if you can see that there, but it thins out just a little bit there, Taven. And it has something to do with the way that they can cap off the bat now, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, so I was listening to something earlier. It might have been some type of podcast, but they were saying that Gleyber Torres' bat, it's more so like at the barrel shifted downwards because that's like his main point of contact. And that's pretty much what all they're different for everybody, the barrel spot, but again, they're not really against, like, they're regulated. So I don't know. I'm against it strictly because it's the Yankees. If it was any of the 29 other teams, I wouldn't have cared. But since it's the Yankees, I'm not a huge fan of it. But that's probably just because,
So let's take the Yankees
Going against the
aside
Yankees.
let's take the Yankees aside for a second because the Braves are going to start using this technology.
Yeah.
Are you for it? Because, I mean, let's go back to 2019 when, I mean, the juice ball era conversation was in full swing and the Twins were setting home run records and the Yankees were hitting a crap ton of home runs there as well. Do you think that it's going to lead them to like deaden the baseball and not wound it as tightly, which they're already trying to do anyway? I mean, baseball is going through a lot of changes, man.
So I'm on the fence with it, but leaning more toward yes, because if you want to make the game more exciting without, a lot of people bring up the steroid era and how it's more, exciting with, Barry Bonds smashing all the home runs, all that. I think this is going to give guys a lot more hits, a lot more home runs without, having to do all that stuff. And, if there's a way that you're able to do it, I think this is it because, again, it's regulation. It's not like the Yankees are using these bats like that's the entire barrel and it extends down. Like it's regulation bat. So if it means, there's more scoring, I'm all for it. Then again, though, I would like to see it with every team, though. I wouldn't like to, just kind of see it with 5 teams per se. I'd like to see it with, every team. Not saying every guy on each team has to use it, but, at least like 5 guys or something using it or something like that. I think there'll be, rules and stuff with that, but something along those lines.
So also called the bowling pin bat. This comes from an article by Jeff Passan, very, very smart person, by the way, on ESPN.com. It optimizes the most important tool in baseball, which is the barrel of the bat, by redistributing weight from the end of the bat towards the area 6 to 7 inches below its tip. So they basically took weight from the bottom of the bat where you would hold it, or sort of, I really wish I had a baseball bat on me or a blitzball bat or something. But if you want to bring that picture back up, actually, maybe I can help out a little bit more. So if you imagine the bat a little bit farther down, it's taking weight away from that part of the bat and moving it up towards
I got a mini
barrel.
bat. Maybe that'll work for you.
Yeah. And you'll want to take this picture away too.
Yeah. All right. Go ahead.
All right, mini bat. So move your hand up, that. Keep going. Just keep going. Boom, right there. So where it starts to really get enlarged, it's taking weight away from that part and shifting it to the center of the barrel or wherever the hitter's sweet spot happens to be. And that sort of creates the bowling pin effect that you have seen. Doing so takes an apparatus that for generations has looked the same and gives it a fun house mirror makeover with the fat part of the bat more toward the handle and the end tapering towards a smaller diameter, like a bowling pin. 9 So the bat had its big debut over the weekend as the Yankees tied a major league record with 15 home runs in their first 3 games. Didn't know that, so good for the Yankees. 9 of those came from 5 Yankees who adopted the bowling pin bat style. So 9 home runs, 5 different players, all of them using the torpedo bat. Jazz Chisholm, Anthony Volpe, Jazz Chisholm, the one you saw pictured, by the way, Austin Wells, Cody Bellinger, and Paul Goldschmidt. Jazz Chisholm, the biggest benefactor of it so far, with 3. Again, Aaron Judge hit 4 and did not use the torpedo bat, which just shows you how scary good of a player that Aaron Judge is. Giancarlo Stanton is also a guy that loves to use this bowling pin bat style. Okay, so let's understand how this works here. I mean, me and you are going to be learning this information for the first time as well. Take a sledgehammer and a broom handle. The sledgehammer will be a more difficult to swing because much of its weight is distributed to the tip. If you basically put a sledgehammer top on top of a broom handle. The broom handle, meanwhile, can be swung with immense speed, but doesn't contain significant mass. If the length and weight of bats are constants, the distribution of mass is the variable. And this minor league pitching coach that first invented the torpedo/bowling pin bat conceived of a bat that optimizes both so it can do the most damage. And thus, the torpedo bat has been born. I think it's going to be a good tool. I also think it can lead to a lot more 3 outcome baseball, which is where the game has been trending for a long time. But it's a trade-off hitters are willing to make. And that trade-off being you're trying to take a sweet spot and put more mass with it. So much of the mass is in the barrel. Swings that don't connect on it produce results that look more feeble to those traditionally tapered models. So if you can't hit the sweet spot on the torpedo bat, you're going to see more pop-ups, more ground outs, more flyouts, things of that nature. But if you get really good at using that torpedo bat, it's going yard seemingly every single time.
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff that goes into this. I'm not sold either way yet, but it should be interesting to see how other teams are able to use them. See if it's kind of universal around the league, or if it's just the Yankees.
I, much like everything else in life, which I think everyone out there should adopt, but I'm not going to tell you how to live your life, am going to read a crap ton about it, and then I'll make a decision about it. I'll also want to see it in use now that the Yankees and now the Braves are going to be using it there as well. But the new addition also with baseball on the flip side of things with the pitching staff is this split change sinker slider, the weird split swerve ball that is coming out. That pitch is disgusting.
What is it again?
It's it's like a split sweeper. Maybe I can present stuff now. So the most interesting new pitches of 2024. Yeah, I should be able to. The cutter is getting used a lot more now as well. We've seen that with pitchers like Emmanuel Clase and Logan Gilbert. Carlos Rodon, also a big user of the cutter as well. Yeah, the kick change is another great pitch. Have you seen some of the pitches that have already been thrown? I mean, just the pitch by Kumar Rocker that has been thrown, like his gyro slider. Have you seen this thing?
I have not.
Oh my goodness. This thing has, so if you go look at Baseball Savant, it has like 2 feet of vertical movement, 2 feet of horizontal movement, whatever have you, but like, go take a look at some of these Frisbee pitches that are being thrown. There are pitches out there that literally just got thrown in opening weekend that have up to 27 inches of movement, either vertically or horizontally. That's 2.25 feet.
Yeah, that's
in
insane.
the blink of an eye.
That's nuts.
Which is, I think, why the torpedo bat is coming into play, because pitching is only getting better and better.
Yeah.
And hitters want to get better and better too. So that's exactly why the torpedo bat is coming into play, I think.
Yeah, for sure.
Interesting. Very interesting. Baseball is going through a lot of changes, but man, we are just so excited that baseball is finally back. We are coming up on the 100-minute mark, which I think is where we're going to try to cap a lot of our podcasts this year, Taven, at that 1 hour, 40-minute or hour-minute mark. You have about an hour before the Guardians' first pitch against the Padres tonight. Those of you on the East Coast, make sure you drink some coffee today because stay up, watch some baseball, and yeah, just have a good night. So really excited for minor leagues to get back into the full swing of things. Obviously, the Clippers are already there. We got to tell the fine people, Taven, who everyone is playing, and we'll preview what we're doing next week. We'll start from the bottom up. Lynchburg, 4-game set on the road against Fayetteville. That's your single A. Your high A, Lake County, on the road to play the Great Lakes. Akron also starting out on the road. Everyone just starting out on the road in the Guardians organization, I guess. Akron's got a 4-game series with the Richmond Flying Squirrels, and Columbus opens up their first 6-game series of the year. Their home opening series, they will play St. Paul.
Yeah.
By the way, the 3 previous teams, Akron, Lake County, and Lynchburg, those 3-game sets all start this coming Friday, and then the Clippers, again, they start Tuesday, and that's a 6-game set. So we will be here to recap all of that for you next week. Now the show is every week, every single Monday, 7 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. Go follow our Twitter, subscribe to our YouTube. We will keep putting out constant updates, especially on Twitter, of when shows are set to go live. Technology finally likes us, so we are here. We are back. For once. You're not kidding. For once.
Been a long 5 days.
Yeah, it's been a crazy 5 days. I mean, trying to get the blue check mark on Twitter. Thanks, Elon. And then getting the YouTube thing set up. We were blacklisted, for lack of better terminology, or waitlisted. I guess that there is better terminology. We were waitlisted for 24 hours, and we just decided we're not going to mess with anything. Let's just start on Monday. I know the view count probably was not stupidly high, but
what did we get? 35.
Yeah, sure.
35.
Hey, I'm not going to
first show back. Pretty good.
I'm not going to lie to all you fine people. That is a lot more than I expected. So please tell everyone, follow us on Twitter, subscribe to our YouTube. The people that followed Believeland Media, get them over here, and look forward to seeing our clips and stuff on Keon Sports. Clips of this and future podcasts will be over on their social media platforms, so go check them out. And again, And again, a big thank you to Kevin Sleds for even making all this possible. In the first place, we would not be growing as we are without him. And we want to thank him for all of his support. And he's even still supporting this and moving on to a new parent company and things like that. So appreciate you, Kevin. We hope all the best for what is now small town media and Portage County coverage, and prospects of the land still going strong.
I think you put it perfectly. Like you said, we would just want to thank Kevin Sleds one more time for, giving us this great platform to, start this podcast to let us keep this going. Could be more grateful, and it should be fun. Follow the YouTube, or subscribe to the YouTube. Follow our Twitter page for all the updates, or X now. All the updates, shows will be up on there too. Keon Sports will have clips and stuff on there. Full link, or links to the full podcast. Can't watch it live, go back, watch it there. So should be fun.
And if we end up getting around to creating an Instagram or TikTok, which I know Taven was talking about, you will definitely be all the first to know, which is why you need to follow us. You need to subscribe. You need to do all of that stuff. If you follow us on Twitter, there's no reason why you shouldn't be subscribed to us on YouTube. So please go make that happen. We want to try to grow our show as big as possible, and hopefully get some other, just some new folks, some old folks. We're excited, man. Baseball's here. It's a long season. We got a lot of time to grow. 35, not too bad. Next show, let's try to get to 50. Let's bump that thing up there.
50 is the goal next week. I mean, that's all I got for this week, Nate. You good?
Yeah, that's all I got too. I need to learn to stop doing so much talking. That's one thing. That's one thing that I got to learn. People are like, God, shut up.
Time to go watch some guard ball.
Oh, yeah. Guard ball in about an hour. I actually am going to go get dinner. It's going to be a late dinner for Nate today, but dinner, guard ball, and media work. So that's the life I live.
we appreciate everybody, tuning in. First show back. Good to be back. And should be a fun baseball season. So
Next week, Monday at 7 Eastern.
Yep. See you guys then.
See ya.